Hey guys, and welcome back to the Tech Buddies podcast. Today's episode is a solo episode where I'm going to be talking about the Galaxy Unpacked 2025. So, every year Samsung does their Galaxy Unpacked, their version of uh, Apple's WWDC, maybe not WWDC, but like any event where they launch their devices. And the first Galaxy Unpacked is usually for their Samsung S series or S lineup, the base lineup for their non foldable devices. So, as expected, we got the S25, S25 Plus, and S25 Ultra, all of which we will be covering. I'll try to keep the episode as short as possible for the sake of making this episode really information dense and not talking about too much unnecessary stuff. Anyways, there's okay. Let's just start with it. So let's start off with the base model, the S25, and design wise itself, it is extremely similar to previous year's S24. So if I were to pull up a picture of it so that you guys can also see it, I'm trying to make the episode uh, more better for you guys to see. So you can just see the design of the S25. I mean, this is a leak, but the leak is quite similar to the product that has actually come out. And yeah, the design wise, it hasn't changed much. Samsung has stayed true to their DNA. And I think the major difference you can see is the camera bumps have become a lot bigger. Going back to the image, you can see that the camera bump has become a lot bigger around the around the camera. It's like they've added a ring over to the camera, and most people I've spoken to found this to be quite cheap, or it reduced the premium element of the phone. However, I'm not sure if I agree with that fact. The 5G and 4G antennas have been relocated for better performance. So design wise, those are the only major differences. Moving on to the specifications, if we were to compare those two phones, it's now 0.4 millimeters thinner and 5 grams lighter. Basically, you're not going to notice any difference. Then it's basically slimmer, and you have a button now which does like multiple tasks. So it's like a Gemini button, but it also has Bixby now. So Bixby is kind of back, and it's integrated with a lot of AI features, much like how Siri has the Copilot features and things like that, right? So they have tried to introduce those two things also with the newer Samsung phones. And the processor, if you were to go on to the processor, it's the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. So much like how the OnePlus or other brands do, they make their own specific version of the SoC, or they tune it for their devices. Here it's Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. The previous gen was 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy. Like I said, I covered the weight and stuff. Display virtually remains the same. Both peak brightness lies at 2600 nits. And overall, if I were to go to the new AI features, there's a brief now. It can give you a brief of your day and brief of things. Circle to search, which was there before. And just those Gemini features have been added. Those are the biggest change. And then you can use I think this is an ultra feature, so I won't do it. Now, optical zoom is 3x, optical quality zoom is 2x, and digital zoom is 30x. And I think it's just they've rebranded the names of the same zooms they had with the previous devices, so you guys better be aware. The ultra wide camera is a 12 megapixel camera. I think it's high time Samsung started leveling up their game when it comes to ultra wide. And telephoto is a 10 megapixel camera. I mean, these are your flagship phones, Samsung. I think it's time you increase the megapixel. And I know that megapixel counts are not everything, and it comes down to a lot of software optimization. But still, you're paying a lot for this phone, right? And battery wise, virtually the same, 4000 milliamp hours. And you get 1 hour more of battery life compared to the previous one, at least when it comes to video playback, due to processor improvements. But I still think they could have increased it at least to 4500 milliamp hours. And again, it's an octa-core processor. Overall, I'm not going to talk much. I think we can move on to the next phone. I'm just seeing if there's any other changes that have been there, and I don't notice anything. So let's move on to the next phone, the S25 Plus, and comparing it to the S24 Plus. So the naming schemes remain the same for those of you that are interested to know that. Again, the design virtually is same as the base S25, and The wallpapers are also not interesting this year. So one thing I didn't cover with the S25 Plus and the S25 are the colors. So the S25 comes in icy blue, a navy, a silver shadow, and a mint. The colors are quite nice. There's also like Samsung exclusive pink gold, which looks really nice in my opinion. A blue black and a coral red. No proper black. Like I don't know why Samsung is not doing that, but yeah, that is it for the colors. I think the colors are also the same for the S25 Plus, so you won't be getting any exclusive colors. I think you never did anyways. And the only color that I feel they could have done a bit better is the coral red. I'm a fan of the coral red color, but I think they could have implemented it slightly better. 0.4 millimeters thinner, 6 grams lighter, same thing. Now brief and circle to search, like I said before. And virtually these phones are the same. Only difference is the battery life again. The newer version, 1 hour improvement in battery life. And this comes with 4900 milliamp hour battery. So previous year also it was 4900 milliamp hour. So take that as you will. And I don't think there's anything else to talk about these phones. So let's move on to the bread and butter for Samsung, at least in the news cycle. That is their Ultra lineup of phones. And design wise, also, if I were to show you guys, right, the S25 Ultra. And the thing is, like, you can show me an S24 Ultra, and I won't be able to tell the difference between that and the S25 Ultra. And you can just see it. It looks exactly the same. Again, the primary difference being the camera lens. So going back to my view, it's now thinner. Bezels have slightly been reduced like they usually do. Same now brief. So basically what they've tried to do is integrate Gemini and Bixby as one. So you can't call it. That's the problem. Like how I can use like Siri or something, right? It's not there for Samsung phone. So you have to use the physical button to use it. And while it is smart, it keeps frequenting between those like just core Gemini. So if you ask for FAQ related questions or something where it requires more thinking, it does Gemini, and for like in phone tasks, it uses Bixby. So it's kind of confusing. I don't know why Samsung would do that. Maybe they could have just called it Gemini. And the ultra wide camera is now 50 megapixel ultra wide compared to 12 megapixels. So a huge jump. That is probably the only thing they've done. Wide angle camera is still 200 megapixel, which is epic. Telephoto 50 to 10 megapixels. So I think it takes a 10 megapixel photo to save storage, as far as I know. Still remains 5000 milliamp hour battery life. They claim 31 hours of video playback, and still comes with the same Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. Then I think there's been an upgrade in the RAM. I think all phones come with 12 GB RAM from now, so that is a good upgrade. It's slightly bigger screen, 6.9 inches over the 6.8 inches. And overall, it's just mainly the AI features that they have improved. And that's just the thing with the Samsung phone. So I will just check the base model S25 for its memory so that I can also... Yeah, base model S25 is also 12 GB RAM. So that's the good thing, that now everything is coming with 12 GB 12 GB RAM. And I think it's high time that Samsung discontinued the 256 gigabyte variant of the S25 Ultra. We are paying a premium for this phone, and I think anything less than 512 is too less for this phone, considering it's able to take 200 megapixel photos. They strengthened the front camera to the newer Gorilla Glass standards. The back camera, I don't think there are any changes. And yeah, there are a lot of S Pen specific AI features. I'm not one who's all for these AI features on the phone. I prefer keeping it simple. Now, this phone comes with One UI 7, which I've heard really good things about. And there's now a Now bar. So Now bar is basically like Apple's like things that are happening right now. If you see the lock screen, right? I forgot the exact name for it. Live activities or something like that. So there is a Now bar for that. So you can get all your games in the sense like football game, or if you want to check when your Swiggy or Uber is coming, you can see that through your lock screen. So that's good. The camera app layout has been improved. So now there are more functions and they're easier to access. So it's exposure settings can be changed easier, so it's easy for you to take better videos. Galaxy AI becomes more integrated with the phone, but I don't know how much it is. But it is surprisingly usable. Siri still, in my opinion, even the Apple Intelligence version hasn't made any significant changes yet. So like it's not making any big change in my day-to-day interactions with Siri. And now the new Galaxy AI with calendar stuff, it handles like calendar based requests quite well for all the people that are using Samsung calendar. But yeah. And overall I feel like um oh yeah, there's also raw recording in the S25 Ultra, which is one thing I did not mention. And 10-bit HDR recording starts by default now, which it wasn't before. You had an option to turn it on. And I feel overall, if I were to, yeah, so some AI features also that I can say is AI select, same as circle to search that is there. Circle to search has gotten better now with URLs, numbers, less prone to errors. And there's like you can ask Gemini to perform multiple like things. So like for example, like based on apps, so you can say if when this new movie comes out, can you remind me, or like things like that. Like for example, the example that I'm seeing here is that tell me about search for the upcoming Warriors game and add it to my calendar. So that's really nice. There's AI photo search and setting search also, like so now there's neural language processing within your search. So even if you're not searching for the exact setting name, it's able to understand what setting you're looking for, and it's easier for people to interact with the search options, although I don't know how much people are using it. Then there's an audio eraser like Google has with their Pixel phones, and this basically helps you clean up choppy audio and make it sound a whole lot better. And generative edit has also improved. Then so we haven't seen this Galaxy S25 Edge, which was rumored to come this time around, or the S25 Slim that is supposed to rival the iPhone 17 Slim. So I think that might come out along with the foldable phone. So we'll have to wait for that. And overall, I think, yeah, now I would say the episode's kind of over. And I actually wanted to keep it sub 10 minutes, but I think the next 3 minutes, I can just leave it as my thoughts. Overall, I found this event to be quite unimpressive. I wasn't in tune with the media coverage of it. I simply didn't have the time, nor was I interested enough. If there's one thing I've learned from the past few events of Samsung, is that it's been extremally lackluster. And I think Samsung is unashamedly copying Apple in some ways or the other. Neither has Apple's events been super interesting for me, except for the iOS ones, because those are the ones that I actually interact with on a daily basis. But whether it comes to the Galaxy Buds or even the settings app, with the One UI 7 redesign, there are a lot of settings the layout is very similar to Apple's settings layout. And I feel Samsung should rework its brand identity. I think it's been a while, because it's ever since the S22 Ultra, maybe the S23 Ultra, right? S23, S24, S25 all look the same. And even if you take it back, the changes haven't been major at all, to the point where if you give someone a phone, they won't be able to differentiate which model it is if they have a case on. And even if they don't have a case on, some people might, including me, I might make a mistake and I don't know, I might just think it's a different phone. So Samsung, please, I think it's time you worked on your design, you switch things up a bit. Make it a bit interesting, throw up some new things, maybe give One UI a complete overhaul. I don't know why you're playing it this safe, whether it comes to your mid-range or your flagships, but the events just do not feel as interesting as it used to. I remember when the 200x zoom came out for the first time, it was so good. And I'm not saying they haven't improved the phone this time around, but I just feel it's not substantial enough to even be called a new phone. Like MKBHD was saying, this should have just been the S24S or something like that. And I kind of agree with him. I think Samsung needs to get back to a drawing board and revamp their lineup, whether it be the mid-range or the flagships, work on their pricing too, because Apple's providing really good value for money products, especially with the base model iPhone 16, in my opinion. Granted, it does not have adaptive refresh rate and things like that, or high refresh rate. But I still feel the value that Apple is providing at that price range, Samsung is simply not able to match. And Apple is constantly changing their design. I know some may say that's not true, and maybe with the Pro models it isn't. But if you see the base model, at least the design has changed to a point where I can distinguish it with the previous model at least decently. Anyone would be able to tell the difference. With this, it's not easy. And that's just not my complaint. I just feel brands are not making it interesting anymore. And I think my advice to Samsung is one, make it interesting and also get back into the VR space. I think Samsung has a really nice potential considering that they were one of the early runners in that specific domain. So I'd like to see some things that Samsung does. I know the reviews of this phone would be good. If you're looking to buy these phones, I'm not saying in any way they are bad, but I'm just saying they're not as interesting as I expected they would be. And I think with that, I can wrap this episode. I don't want to keep it too long or ramble about the case of with Samsung, because I remember covering the folding phones and I was similarly unhappy. So I'm left with the same feeling in this episode too. And I'd love to give the devices an actual hands down review, and hopefully my opinion changes with that. But for now, I'll just say the products are okay, but nothing special.